This is the Extra Point Podcast. During this podcast, we will dive deeper into our Sunday teaching and share practical next steps for your faith journey. Now, let's kick off the Extra Point.
Hey, welcome to the Extra Point. I'm Cheryl Ross, the Next Steps in Discipleship Pastor, and I'm here with Scott Beha, our lead pastor. And we were in another week of our series, 1 week, going through the final week of Jesus's life leading up to Easter. And so this past Sunday, you talked about how Jesus took not just Barabbas's place, but our place. Give us a quick rundown of that teaching and what it was about.
Yeah, so we started off in Mark 15, and this is right after the trial of Jesus, which the religious leaders arrest Jesus on Thursday night. It's important for us to remember who actually arrested him. It was not Rome. Rome did not get involved until Friday morning. So it was actually the religious leaders, the leading people in Judaism at the time. And they hold a trial throughout the night, which that already tells you something shady is going on, because who holds, criminal trials in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
So it's all just a bunch of trumped up charges, and they're doing it there, and the whole council was there, which the whole council in Judaism was called the Sanhedrin. Mm-hmm. And they are bringing false witness after false witness after false witness. But they have a problem. There's a limit to their power. Rome, who was the occupying force at the time, allowed the Jewish religious leaders and things you could arrest people, you could probably fine people, different civil things like that. But when it came to actually executing a criminal, only Rome held that power. Mm-hmm. And so they had already decided that Jesus of Nazareth was going to die. And so they knew that they were going to have to get Rome involved. And so they take Jesus to Pontius Pilate, who is the prefect over that area of the Roman Empire at this time. He's the person that actually has the power to kill a prisoner if it's needed. And the charge that they tell Pilate why they're bringing him there becomes obvious of what they told him when Pilate looks at Jesus and says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Pilate's not concerned because some of the accusations, if you go back and look at the text that deals with the trial that happened overnight, mm-hmm. They're like, this guy blasphemed. He said he'd destroy the temple.
Yeah.
All stuff Pilate does not care about whatsoever. Right. But a rival king, that's something that has to be investigated, even though it becomes very obvious throughout this whole text that Pilate does not buy this whatsoever. Mm-hmm. He knows that these people are up to shenanigans. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the people that were in power, it's just like we see it to this day. People that are in power will do absolutely anything to stay in power. Mm-hmm. And Pilate's number one job, keep the peace. Mm-hmm. And here we are on Passover week. There's an influx of people into the area of Jerusalem. There's a bunch of people in and out. Like, there's always the possibility of an uprising when you get that many people from outside of Jerusalem coming to Jerusalem. And so Pilate just wants to keep the peace. And one of the ways that Pilate has found to keep the peace is he has this agreement with the Jews. This wasn't a practice in Rome. So like there will be skeptics about the Bible that will go, well, this isn't actually a document. This was most likely just an arrangement between Pilate and the Jewish people in Jerusalem to keep the peace, especially on Holy Weeks. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't need to be widely written about for this to be something that actually took place, because it's very logical to go, Pilate wanted to keep the peace so he could keep his power. So he made a pact with the religious leaders. I will release a prisoner to you to keep you all on your best behavior. He's doing that also because the people that are going to cause the problems are the criminals. Yeah. If you give them one of their people back, they're not going to cause any problems during the Holy Weeks. Right. So it's a very logical thing that Pilate did. But he sets this thing up in such a way, he brings out this man named Barabbas, who we're told is a murderer, who was leading a revolt against Rome, essentially. And he goes, all right, who do you want? You want Barabbas? You want Jesus? And it's like, what has Jesus done? Claimed that he was going to destroy the temple, claimed that he was God. but he also healed people, fed people, like taught, amazing moral messages and things like that. And it's like, it's no contest. And yet the religious leaders, because of the fact that they want to kill Jesus, they rile up the crowd to get Barabbas released. And then Jesus ends up taking all of the punishment that was due to Barabbas in his place. It's like a perfect picture of salvation, of what has actually happened. That, and this is the point that we finally got to in the sermon, is that when we see this story, we should see ourselves. Like, we are Barabbas. You may not be a murderer, but, maybe according to Jesus you might be. He says that if you've been angry with someone in your heart, that you've already committed murder.
Yeah.
And so he's going, all of us are Barabbas in one way or another, because we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We are not the innocent one. Jesus is the innocent one in the scene. We are the guilty one, but the innocent one takes the place of the guilty one in this. And what he did for Barabbas in a very real, physical way, he does for us also in a very real spiritual way, where he takes the punishment and the consequences of us breaking the covenant with God, and he takes the responsibility of that upon himself and allows us to be the recipient of the blessing that comes out of that. Yeah. And so that's kind of the story in a nutshell. There was definitely some stuff in there that I had to cut out. Yeah. That I'd like to go back to.
Yeah. So I know you briefly talked about how Jesus remained silent.
Yeah.
He did not speak up, but there's reasons for that.
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
Yeah. So the number one reason behind him staying silent is because he already. Remember week 1 of this series, we said when you know who you are and what you came to do and what you're all about, then you can do that, whether things are going good or whether things are going bad. That's the number one reason why he stays silent, is that Jesus understands, I came to die for everyone that is encompassed in Barabbas.
Right.
Everyone that Barabbas is a picture of. I came to die for them. I came to do this work, and so I'm going to stand silent, even though I could defend myself, and it's very obvious that Pilate wants to let him go if he will just defend himself. There's actually, like, the Roman custom was the governor would give you 3 chances to defend yourself, and if you would not speak up and defend yourself, then he would have to let the proceedings go. And so Jesus does not defend himself because he knows who he is and what he came to do. But then there's a deeper thing that we did not get into on Sunday, that also why Jesus remains silent. And it's because Jesus, again, knew who he was, what he came to do. And he had tied himself to this figure in the Jewish writings of Isaiah, of the suffering servant. Yeah. And when you go to Isaiah 53, this whole prophecy is about the coming Messiah. He says, Isaiah writes down, he says, who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up like a tender shoot and like a root out of the dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering, familiar with pain, like one from whom people hide their faces. He was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Clearly talking about Jesus. Surely he took our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. So all the Jewish onlookers, as these things are happening to Jesus, go, yeah, that's exactly what you get. When you claim to be God, you claim to destroy God's temple, this is exactly what you get. Yeah. And so they all thought that he was stricken and afflicted by God. And then it goes on, but he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him. By his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us have turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. So this mysterious figure of the suffering servant in Isaiah 53 is someone that God is going to lay the sins of all of us guilty people on. And he's going to be the one that deals with it. So then it goes on, verse 7. He was oppressed and afflicted, and yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and a sheep before his shearers is silent. So he did not open his mouth. This is the other reason why Jesus remains silent, is because he is attaching himself to this figure of Isaiah 53. He goes, the one who through his stripes you're healed, the one that is bearing your transgressions and your iniquities in his body through his death and all of this, he's going, that's me. So he's tying this even on a deeper level than, yes, he knows why he came, so he's not going to put up a fight because he came to die. But he's also going to remain silent. And Mark is going to write this in a way, that way as people read this, they're able to connect it to this figure of Isaiah 53 and see that Jesus of Nazareth was the fulfillment of the suffering servant in Isaiah 53.
Awesome. Now, later, when you were talking about, Barabbas being set free and things, you talked about the Day of Atonement and how this was a big moment in the year for dealing with sin with Israel. So share a little bit more about that and what we see here.
Yeah, so this is exactly this whole idea of Jesus taking Barabbas' place and Jesus taking our place. Even though it doesn't seem fair, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel just, it's actually what we should have always expected, given the way that God had always dealt with humanity's sinfulness. If you go all the way back to Genesis chapter 3, when Adam and Eve decide to eat from the tree that they're not supposed to, and it tells us that they were naked and ashamed, and they were hiding from God because they had sinned. It was the first time that they realized, like, oh no, we've messed this thing up. I'm naked. Like, I'm ashamed of what I've done, and they're hiding from God. And then God calls them out, has a talk with them, and then the next thing that we see God doing is He clothes them. They have leaves on, which we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. They have leaves on, trying to cover themselves. God kills an animal and clothes them with the skin of that animal. That's the picture that's going to be, that's in Genesis 3. We only get 3 chapters in before we see this first substitutionary death on behalf of somebody else. And so then you see that play out throughout the rest of Israel's history. When you get to someone like Abraham, all right, Abraham, I want you to sacrifice Isaac. Why? And that story, I think it's in Genesis 22, feels so foreign to us. This God feels like a cosmic child abuser. Like, what are you talking about? Take Isaac and because it's so foreign to us. Except for it wasn't foreign to Abraham and the Sumerian culture around him, because they all believed that you were supposed to kill your firstborn to appease the gods. This is when Abraham is told to go kill Isaac, even though it makes us cringe, would never do that to my son. Totally normal behavior in the ancient Near East. This is what they did to appease the gods. And so Abraham's like, yeah, of course, I don't want to do it. I waited so long for Isaac. I'll kill him though, because that's what we do to appease God. Then when you get up on the, and it's probably the reason why Isaac didn't seem to put up much of a fight either. Like, I don't know about you, but to get my son up a mountain where he knows what's about to happen, that'd be a pretty good fight going on. But he also understands. But then in something that never happened up to this point, right before Abraham kills Isaac, God stops him and says, no, don't touch your son. And that moment right there was the end of child. It should have been the end of child sacrifice, but as far as Israel and the people of God goes, it becomes the end of child sacrifice. No longer are we going to do this, because we have now realized God will let us kill an animal in the place of a human. Is that a good thing? It's not a great thing. It's a better thing, though. Because what God is doing is progressively showing us who He is in ways that ancient people were able to fathom it. So it's like, no. Stop killing your children. We'll do this substitutionary thing with this. And then you get into Moses and the law coming, and God now writes a whole book of Leviticus essentially about how we can bring these offerings and we can bring these sacrifices, and no longer do we have to do this other, these other practices that they were trying to do to appease God. And so again, they are allowed every family once a year would bring an animal to sacrifice to appease God for their sin. It was substitutionary. The family didn't have to die anymore. Now this animal's going to die in their place. To set up a whole system. Same thing with the temple. After Moses graduates out of the tent of meetings where this or the tabernacle where this stuff was happening, and then David comes along and gathers up the supplies for Solomon to ultimately build the temple. Then the temple sacrifice goes in there, but it was always substitutionary.
Yeah.
And that's where the story of the Day of Atonement comes in, where we saw there was two different animals that, or two different goats that would come in, and one of them would die as a substitutionary sacrifice. One of them, called the scapegoat, would be led away after having the sins of all the people pronounced upon them. So all throughout the Old Testament and the history of God, we see a substitutionary payment being made on behalf. Like one person can sub in for, like one thing can sub in for somebody else, and that's been the way that God has allowed humanity. But then eventually you get far enough to realize, the sacrifice comes to an end, because eventually there will be a sacrifice so great that is going to never have to be replicated ever again.
Yeah.
That's what happens with Jesus on the cross. And so, you have to realize how God was revealing himself to humanity. It started off as like, no, let's just kill an animal. And then it got to, hey, let's not kill anything now, because what Jesus has done has sufficed.
Yeah.
And now you can be saved, not through the killing of an animal or someone else taking your place, but now through faith in Jesus and allowing him to change your heart. You can now be saved without a sacrifice. It was revolutionary, because these people, everybody was used, like everybody in the ancient world, whether they were Jewish or not, was aware of this sacrificial idea, because they believed that's what the gods wanted from them. And this thing is revolutionary that God does when he allows Jesus to be the once for all sacrifice. He goes, no more. You don't have to do it anymore. It's all been taken care of, and now you just have to trust in the one that did it for you.
Yeah.
That's a different way of being saved. It is remarkable. And so we should have, even though it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel just, we should have been looking for it all along, because this is what God was doing over and over and over.
Yeah,
like
little by
again,
little.
even just I missed Passover.
Yeah.
Passover, they go,
Yes, right.
Okay, God's going to send the death angel into Egypt to help set you free, but you guys are not safe unless you kill the lamb, put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. So that lamb is going to die so the way that all the people in the house can live. It was a substitutionary sacrifice. Again, you see it all over the Old Testament. It's what we should have been looking for all along. And so Barabbas and Jesus ends up just being a very physical picture of all of these substitutionary sacrifices. And then it ends up being the picture of what has been done for each and every one of us. Because we're all Barabbas. We've all sinned. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. And yet, for some remarkable reason, the God of creation loves you and loves me. I have no idea why. The amount of times that I have completely failed, and he still loves me. And he still loves you. Because we are all Barabbas, he still did it anyways. And so that's the type of love I think is worth living for.
Yeah, absolutely. So one practical application, or one thing that you really want to make sure people understand and know, and how it should change our lives from this message.
Yeah, so with Barabbas, we have no idea what happened to that dude after that moment. There's nothing else written about him. There's nothing like, Barabbas' life was changed forever. And there's also not like Barabbas went out and killed 3 people later that afternoon.
Right.
We have no information. Here's my one practical application step for you today. If you have allowed Jesus to take your place, and you have put your faith and trust in what he did on the cross, that you've been forgiven of your sins and made into a new creation because he rose again on the 3rd day, then unlike Barabbas, where we have no idea what happened to that brother after this encounter with Jesus, make your life so obvious that he took your place. Live in such a way that his sacrifice actually matters. Yeah. Go and love people, share that message with people, do kind acts of service. Allow that message that he actually took your punishment, and don't let it be in vain. Don't let it just be something that you have benefited from. Make sure other people are benefiting from the fact that you have placed your faith and trust in the one that took your place.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, there you have it. We will be back here with another extra point and some more practical next steps for your faith journey from our Easter services. So we hope that you will join us then. And if you haven't liked or subscribed to this podcast, make sure you do so. That way you don't miss out on any new content.
Thanks for tuning in to The Extra Point. Be sure to subscribe to the Southridge Church podcast and tune in every Wednesday for another episode of The Extra Point.